There is nothing wrong with your YouTube video. Do not attempt to reload the page. We are now controlling transmission. If we wish to make it louder, we will bring up the volume. To make it softer, we will tune it to a whisper. We control the horizontal and the vertical.
I'm sorry? What?! Channel Awesome's already doing a spoof on the Outer Limits? Okay, that puts a plug in the works. Then again, I didn't think I could create anything Thomas to relate with the Outer Limits anyway. Okay, let's try, Night Gallery. Good evening, and welcome to a private showing of 3 paintings, displayed here for the very first time. Each is a collector's item in its own way, not because of any special artistic quality, but because each captures on a canvas and suspends in time and space a frozen moment of a nightmare. Okay, I'm sorry, that's not working for me either. Let's try, Alfred Hitchcock Presents. Okay, that's definitely not gonna happen, that's laziness. Let's try Tales from the Crypt. Alright, scrap this lot! I'm just gonna stick with the Twilight Zone! You're traveling into another dimension, one that lies parallel to those of the magic and reality, one of the unnatural. It's a dimension where all logic is ignored, and where stupidity is the spoken language. A place where the railways are managed in ways that confuses all drivers, and where the simplest events will scare the intelligence out of the mind, if not the enthusiasm. These are just examples. It could also be something better. Tonight your favorite stories will be twisted into a darker variation of meaning and moral. We're holding a special ticket just for you, for a Twilight Railroad adventure. Submitted for your approval, this familiar railway tale. A would-be road engine celluloid dream languished as he labors in a most unsatisfying role as a station pilot. And all the while he wonders if opportunity boards the train, could he find the right track? But perhaps his dreams are about to come true, with a little assistance from you, on a Twilight Railroad adventure. Of course, we all know this familiar railway tale. At least the lighter version of it. Oh, who am I kidding? I'm only just reusing the decor from last year. How is anyone gonna take this Twilight Railroad Adventures concept seriously? I mean, what is one to do with it? Reuse illogical elements from the Miller era? People will be bored sick from that. Write twisted variations of classic stories? Who needs the TRA for that? Enterprising Engines is already doing a psychological approach on the mountain engines, and it's far better than what I could have imagined. Introduce a dark and frightening side to the franchise? I want nothing to do with rubbish like that of Timothy the Ghost Train. But who am I to complain? It's only Halloween decor. Besides, that's not what I want to be recognized for. It's the Magic Railroad Adventures! 4th quarter converted into the light side, y'all! My story ain't over yet, we partying or what? Now let's get on with the Q&A. Question 1 from Nicholas Montagnino. Have I ever watched Steven Universe If I have, what is my opinion on the show, and which characters can I compare to the Thomas and Friends characters based on their personalities? Sorry, this is another show I haven't seen, so I can't really compare them with any Thomas characters. Question 2. What do I think if Hidden Entertainment introduced another one of Thomas's class? I'd be rather surprised. I mean, I don't think it'll be likely to introduce a new character that is the same class as one that already exists on Sodor. Unless they were adapting Thomas and the Great Railway Show for a special. I suppose it wouldn't be a big deal if they introduced an E2 without the extended side tanks. That I'm sure they could get away with. Question 3. What was my reaction when I heard that Bachman were going to release Oliver and Toad? Well, I was rather glad that they were introducing Oliver and Toad. It wasn't much of a surprise though, since they already introduced Duck, Donald, and Douglas. What really caught me by surprise was that they were introducing a 009 scale range with the Scolari railway engines in stock. I'm interested to see how their model of Scolari will look. I'm not much of a fan of the CGI design and style, but one advantage of that I really like is how much they improved the detail of the narrow gauge engines. Except for Duncan, of course. I can't wait to see that design go into the released model. Question 4. Which characters from Thomas and Friends would you like Bachman and Hornby to make? I would like to see Rosie, Lady, Diesel 10, Splatter, Dodge, Wilbert, and 16. I would especially like to see Bachman make a lady model. I think they could make a fine model of her. It might be a tad bigger than the Earl model and definitely larger than the Bandai Tech model, but better than nothing. I probably wouldn't care which company makes Splatter and Dodge. Probably leaning more towards Bachman trains since their 08 shunters are better made than those by Hornby, but I definitely would like to see Hornby make a Rosie model using the Yankee Tanky model from their Rivarossi range. They might have to simplify the detailing on it quite a bit to make it child-friendly, but at least it wouldn't look toy-like. That's one of the reasons why I'd like Hornby to make Rosie rather than Bachman. Bachman will just take the design from the TV series and replicate it with no alterations. I mean, who wants a replica of an S100 Yankee Tanky looking like a plastic toy? No, don't blow me up again. I've already agreed not to complain about the color. Isn't that good enough?
Poor chap. He had his chance. Now he must take the consequences.
3 weeks later.
I'm interested to see either company come up with a Diesel 10 model and see how the results will turn out. I would like to see if either of them would make an articulated claw. That might be more likely with Bachman, but on the other hand, Hornby does have the closer resemblance to its basis. I would also like Hornby to make Wilbert and 16. After all, they did make a model of Flying Scotsman and Bear, so why not? Question 5. Have I ever watched Shunter Productions channel? Yes, I have. I'm actually voicing Toby, Duck, and Gordon in this show. Question 6. Have I seen Dajara 521's American Special Residual Haunting, Master of Train, Gentle Dying, and Mythos? Not really. They sound interesting. I think I'll look it up and see how they hold up. Okay, first question from Tank Engine 97. If Britt Allcroft bought the rights to Tugs, Do I think she and David Mitton would have continued it? It would have been nice if she did, but she was already working on 2 shows at the time. Thomas the Tank Engine in England and Shining Time Station in the USA. I doubted if she would have had the energy to work on 3 shows at once, especially since she had to travel across the Atlantic to work on her 2nd show. I've no doubt that David Mitton and his crew could have continued Tug since they weren't part of the Shining Time team, but, like I said, I don't think Britt could have had the energy to produce 3 shows simultaneously. Question 2. If Thomas and the Magic Railroad didn't flop, do I think a sequel could have been possible? I'm not sure they would have considered the idea. It would have been interesting to see what a sequel would have been like, but I have the feeling that the team intended for Thomas and the Magic Railroad to be a one-off movie. It was made with more of the intention of it being a gift that Britt Allcroft wanted to give to her fans instead of a venture into a new spin-off series of the stories. Although it does provide some possibilities which I'm now exploring with the Magic Railroad adventures, such as prequel and sequel series. Question 3. In terms of the MRA character contest, do the winners get to voice their created character in the MRA? Now, this could have been a question you could ask on the contest video, but I'll let it slide for once. I hadn't thought about this. Yeah, I think so. It might take a while though, since I have to get the Legends series out of the way before I dive into the Battle series. Question 4. Would I make a Thomas and Kingdom Keepers crossover, seeing that these are 2 of my favorite things? I wish I could, but it's very unlikely. For starters, the reason why the Kingdom Keepers was formed was so that they could uncover clues left behind by Walt Disney himself to protect the world from the Overtakers, aka the Disney villains. Many of the clues left behind were hidden within locations that existed or were being planned when Walt was still alive, the most prominent places being Walt Disney World in Orlando, Florida, and Disneyland in Anaheim, California. Unless Walt traveled to Sodor and said, "Why don't we build a theme park here for our European audience to enjoy?" It's very unlikely that the Keepers would have any purpose to travel to Sodor in the first place. Same goes for Thomas and or his friends. They couldn't go to any of the Disney parks even if they wanted to. The track gauges at all the railways are too small. Now, if Disney hosted a cruise line to go to Sodor and decided to install the DHI software onto the liner traveling there, it's possible that the Kingdom Keepers could visit Sodor, but then again, the true purpose of them going there is that the Overtakers are also going there. Probably to find something on Sodor to aid them in their malicious plans. Actually, there is a bit of historical information for you from Sodor. The mountain Coldie Fell? The full name is Sudric for the Companion of God. So, Coldie Fell Mountain in English is the Mountain of the Companion of God. And the station Devil's Back? In Sudric, it translates to Derim Yi Deihan. Sorry, my Sudric is a bit sloppy. Anyways, there's a myth behind that. Legend has it that on Sodor, the devil tried to escape to the Earth's surface through the soft soil. However, a giant prevented that from happening by scooping out handfuls of dirt and buried the devil in it. That pile of dirt is now Coldie Fell Mountain, and where the giant scooped it out is now the Walney Channel. This would have to date back to the days of Middle-earth, but it's still epic! I told you a story about a railway combined with myths and magic would be a neat idea. Anyways, in the Kingdom Keeper stories, one of the Overtakers' goals who destroyed the Disney parks was to revive Fantasia's major villain, and we all know who he is, don't we? The devil, or Satan, or officially Chenerbog. Yeah, he was actually called Satan, both by Deems Taylor and Fantasia.
Bald Mountain, according to tradition, is the gathering place of Satan and his followers.
And by Walt himself in one of his television episodes.
The Prince of Darkness, Satan himself, summons the spirits of evil, and a ghoulish revelry takes place all the night long.
Of course, those of you who have read the Kingdom Keepers books will know well what happened to Satan at the end of The Insider. But supposing the Overtakers decided to travel to Sodor to revive him again, this time through the place he once tried to escape through, Coldfell Mountain. Now, granted, we have seen Satan up at the top of Bald Mountain, but give or take, Coldfell has more of a chance of a Thomas Kingdom Keepers crossover. Now, first question for the new storyteller. What are my thoughts of many projects you make, including Percy the Small Engine and Friends, the YouTube program? Look, sport, I'm as fond as giving my opinion on fan-made Thomas videos as the next YouTuber, but when it comes to YouTubers asking me for my opinion on their own personal projects, I get the impression that those types of questions were either asked for either selfish or attention-seeking matters, and I just can't answer questions like that. I don't mean to sound rude, it's just that I prefer to answer questions that are to the benefit of developing a good social status. Let me explain. Most of the questions I've answered are questions that are asked by other YouTubers about projects that other people have made. They probably ask me because they think that other projects are great things to watch, and they would like to spread the word that the videos they watch are great, and they want to know if I've seen them and what I think of them. My opinion doesn't really matter. What really matters is that subconsciously they're promoting projects that they didn't create, but they think is great. It's for the benefit of the other YouTubers who created the project in question, whether they've asked for the specific other people to promote their video or not. On the other hand, this question feels more like attention-seeking, something that's more to the benefit of yourself and not for others, something that doesn't stand well in virtuous development. So, no offense, I'm just going to leave this question alone. Next question. What are my thoughts on My Little Pony Friendship is Magic Australia based on the original one? I'm also going to leave this question alone since it's another project you created, and I don't really watch My Little Pony all that much, so I would know little to nothing about it. Try more questions that don't relate to your own personal creations. Question 1 from Big Mac Rules. Have I ever thought that I could make a Steam Engines versus series, for example, 611 versus 844 or 1218 versus 3985, etc.? I haven't really thought about that. It might be an idea that I might try out, but right now I can't really pursue it because of all the other projects I have. 2. What are my thoughts on Batman vs. Superman? No doubt it'll be dark and epic, but maybe a bit darker than other tellings of this infamous crossover. Until The Dark Knight, I've never actually watched any of the 21st century reinterpretations of the DC comic book heroes, but I have a general idea on what they're about. Batman Begins shows how Batman originated, Man of Steel introduces Superman, and I've seen The Dark Knight, so it's obviously the Batman against the Joker, etc., etc., etc. Now, the last time we had a major crossover between The Dark Knight and the Man of Steel was in the crossover episodes of the cartoon series during the 1990s. Joker's out of cash and decides to pry on new fish in Metropolis, teams up with Lex Luthor to kill off Superman. Batman follows Joker, and at first doesn't settle well with Superman, even to the point of getting to Superman's main squeeze. Ladies' man, huh, Bruce Wayne? Of course, that's all in the television series universe. But one thing's for sure, this film is going to be a battle of epic proportions. Question 3. What are my thoughts on Thomas Land in the US? Well, I was hoping that it'll be like the parks in the UK and Japan, but now that it's built, it doesn't seem very likely. Question 4. Who do I think would win, Goku or Superman? Goku. Goku? Who's Goku again? Is he a DC comic character or Marvel or... What is he? Oh, he's a Dragon Ball character. Well, I don't really know. I never really watched Dragon Ball. No, I tell a lie. I did watch a little bit of it, but I never really paid much attention to it. So, I don't know. I'm just gonna stick with Superman for now. Actually, scratch that. That'd be unfair. You guys can decide. Question 5. With ARC Studios' great animation, do I think we will get a reboot of the Magic Railroad? If they can come up with a visual representation like the World War II poster, I'd think so. If not, I'm okay with them just animating the characters' faces and adding in people onto Sodor. Of course, it would be nice if they could recreate the classics' faces in CGI as close as possible. Then again, it would be nice if they could create images as epic and vivid as those for Sodor's Legend of the Lost Treasure. Seriously, those shots were brilliant. Though, something about those red sky morning shots remind me of something.
You know what Captain Star says? Red sky at night, sailor's delight. Red sky in the morning, sailor's warning.
Well, I guess that explains why Sailor John failed to get away with the treasure then.
Time, Sailor John.
First question from Mike D57S. What do I think if the engines ever got turned into humans? Like I said in the last Q&A, I am not a fan of metamorphosis and transformation. Truthfully, I find the whole concept odd. I mean, Thomas and friends turned into humans? I don't see what the point is in that, really. Some of the work seems to have been made for fun, others for experiments, and some for puberty transitional periods and satisfaction. Hey, there's no other way of putting it. Unless I don't know of one, and you'd have to tell me. Just be fair with me, okay? Now, don't get me wrong, some of this artwork may not have been inspired by that. I'm only judging on what I've seen, mostly on DeviantArt. I don't know, I might try experimenting with this and see why certain fans humanize Thomas and friends, but just know that this is not an idea I will pursue. I know having Lily and Patch turning into mythical creatures won't happen. Question 2. What do I think of both Cactus 190706's series and Wild Northwester's series individually? Okay, so I did watch Cactus 190706's Rise of Steam, and I found it okay. The fact that he's the same guy who voices Samson in Enterprising Engines is... well, I'm not gonna go into much detail there. The rest of the concept is acceptable, except I never really got the fact as to why Mallard is a female engine when he sounds more like a male engine. Certainly he was portrayed as male in the Railway series. I'm guessing creative license and steam engine. The villain's named Steam Engine. A steam engine named Steam Engine. Original. Steam engine is a steam engine. Obviously. Couldn't get much more creative than that, can you? I've also watched a few more episodes of Sodor the Modern Years. It's an interesting concept of creating stories which happened outside the Railway series, and I've also learned where all those fan-made characters I didn't know that were featured in the Half Pariah film came from. Question 3. Which of the original Railway series / Thomas characters did I find to be the most annoying in terms of personality? I haven't met a Railway series character I didn't like. Truthfully, I can't think of one who I didn't like. Actually, scratch that, there is one. Mr. Mack, the first manager of the Skarloey Railway. I don't really like him all that much, mostly because he knew little about managing trains and scolds Skarloey for a majority of the trouble he's put up with. Granted, Skarloey was being naughty for refusing to pull trucks, but even so, I kind of feel that Mr. Mack was a bit over the top ticked off. He should have called for someone from Fletcher's earlier if he and the others didn't know how to drive engines. Unlike most controllers who've managed to keep their cool when punishing engines and are for the most part firm but fair, I feel as though Mr. Mack was only firm and would be more likely to throw his anger out at anyone who did something wrong, whether he was partially involved for the fault or not. Thankfully, none of the other controllers are as rash as him. Well, in the Railway series anyway. But for the TV series, you can refer to my third Q&A video because I'm not going to bother repeating that list again. And you can add Samson to that list. But don't think I need to bring them up again since I already discussed about them in the last Q&A. Question 4. What kind of music do I listen to? I'll listen to any kind of music except for heavy metal and songs with bad influences. I detest songs that have singers screaming their voices out. It's just so unpleasant to hear. I don't get what is all the rage with it. I'd almost expect the singers' voices, the speakers, and the listeners' eardrums to explode from all that loud noise. But I digress. I personally hate songs that have bad influences, such as innuendos, bad social relationships, drugs, and alcohol promotion, and all that sort of trash. I also don't like songs from artists who let their musical careers get to their head. The music I listen to mostly depends on what I want to listen to. If I feel skippy, I listen to folk or country music. If I feel melancholy, I listen to slow piano. If I feel adventurous, I listen to majestic orchestral pieces. Generally, I listen to soundtracks. I like the scores composed for films, video games, musicals, theme parks, that sort of thing. Question 5. What voices in the CGI series do I like and dislike? Generally, I prefer the UK cast rather than the US cast. I just hate the American voices for the Steam Team. When I first watched Hero of the Rails on DVD, my face just fell when I heard all the voices. Thomas couldn't sound more disinterested.
Fizzling fireboxes, what was that?
Henry was horrible.
Bubbling boilers!
Percy...
Bust my buffers!
meh. James was too old.
Watch my paintwork.
Emily sounds like a stereotypical American.
Trembling tracks! Who was that?
Toby sounded American as well.
Gosh!
Edward sounded out of character.
Slow down, Speedy!
Gordon was...
Rail Raider!
meh. And Spencer didn't sound at all posh.
Hello, Sodor. What do you know? I'm here for the summer.
Now, when I first heard the UK cast, I thought to myself, now why didn't America get the good cast as well? Now, granted, there have been improvements to the USA cast. Thomas now sounds more interested, Percy sounds cuter than he was, James sounds more like the right age, but the others could have had better improvements. Question 6. After the adventure begins, do I think hits should do their own adaptations of the books from now on? I certainly think so. It would be nice if they could cover the entire Railway series from this point on. And that includes Christopher Audrey's books! First question from Gareth Lesueur. Sorry, my French is horrible. But he's otherwise known as Train Kids SP4449. What would I think if Hasbro and Hit Entertainment made a crossover movie with My Little Pony and Thomas and Friends, and what do I think it would be like? Now, I wouldn't be surprised if they did a crossover for the minis range. Actually, scratch that. I'd find it weird. I would be surprised by a crossover film, but it might be less weird. The only thing is that most of the crossover videos I've seen on YouTube are already so funny that I don't think an official movie would even surpass them. Question 2. Have I seen either Galaxy Express 999, the TV series or the movie, or Galaxy Railways? And if I have, what are my thoughts on them? I haven't. This is probably the one anime show I would have gotten interested in most as a kid, but I didn't find this on the channel I watched, WB Kids. The anime shows I remember watching as a kid were Pokemon, Card Captors, and what little episodes of Dragon Ball Z. As an adult, and having never seen the show before, I probably would think Galaxy Railways as an odd concept, since it's not a common thing for trains to travel through outer space. But then again, neither are talking trains. I don't know, I might look for some DVDs in a library and see what they're like. Who knows? Question 3. Have I seen any of the classic cartoons made by Hanna-Barbera? And if I have, what are my favorite shows? I saw 1 or 2 episodes of the Flintstones, a dozen or so episodes of Scooby-Doo, some shorts of Tom and Jerry, and the Jetsons movie. I never really got into them, so I don't really have favorites. Question 4. Have I seen Tough Puppy, and do I think Nickelodeon should bring it back? No. I haven't seen it. Gosh, I'm getting a lot of questions asking about shows I hardly or never watched. I must be a really dull kid compared to other YouTubers. Nah! If you want to know the truth, I studied under the Waldorf education based on Rudolf Steiner's philosophies. What does this have to do with anything? Eliminating the amount of television time for children under 6th grade in order to achieve a better education. I don't mind though, there's hardly anything good on the telly these days. Question 5. You don't know if I could answer this, but whose bright idea was it to make Five Nights at Freddy's and thought it would be a good idea to make a game series that's so scary that it prevents me from ever sleeping again at night? Scott Cawthorn's. Five Nights at Freddy's came as a result when characters from some earlier games Scott worked on were criticized for looking like audio animatronics. Scott decided to use that criticism as an act of revenge, created a game under the horror genre, and thus created Five Nights at Freddy's. Fun fact, Scott actually voices as Phone Guy in the games, and if we assume game theory's theory is correct, then Phone Guy would be the purple guy, the man behind the murders and inside Springtrap, and thusly that would make Scott the purple guy. He really is behind it all. Unless you believe Markiplier's reveal.
It was me the whole time, and that's no theory.
First question from Ben O, or Bo. In the MRE, are there going to be good diesels and evil steam engines and electric engines on both sides? It's likely to happen. You can actually create your own character for the MRA. I've created a new channel and uploaded 3 contest videos anyone can partake in. Links are below in the description. Second question. Which Audrey characters would I add to the TV show? It would be interesting to see the mountain engines. I'd like to see Arc Animation try to render a railway as extravagant as the Snowdon Mountain Railway. I would also very much like to see Bear, Pip, Emma, Jock, Frank, Isabel, Dulcie, Alice, Maribel, Victoria, Elsie, Ivo, Hugh, Agnes, Ruth, Jemima, Lucy, Beatrice, Gertrude, Millicent, Ada, Jane, Mabel, and Cora. 3. Which Audrey stories would I adapt? The Great Railway Show and Thomas Comes Home are on the top of my list. After that, just all the stories that haven't been adapted yet, in general. Question 4. DC or Marvel? I'm gonna go with DC because of the Batman franchise. It's probably one of the few superhero shows I watched as a kid, and it's definitely the one that's had the longest impact on me. There are so many characters in the show that are enjoyable that now, thanks to the Chris Nolan trilogy and the Arkham series, are made much more interesting. Batman, Joker, Ra's al Ghul, Catwoman. You get the gist. There is actually only one DC character outside of Batman that I wish was in that franchise, and that's Mixia Spitlick.
No! No, the other thing. Come on, I know it's just dangling out the tip of your tongue. Let me hear it just once, please.
Superman? Wrong! Okay, it's Lex Luthor. Now, I know you guys are well familiar with the Superman versus Luthor thing and like it all that much, but in my opinion, Luthor is the only realistic villain on Superman's franchise. And by realistic, I mean the only guy who doesn't really rely on any supernatural powers or anything of that sort. In fact, he's realistic enough that he could be in Batman for all I care. It'd be cool if you think about it. I don't know, I'm just throwing out ideas here. 5. Am I going to do the backstories for any of the Northwestern engines? No. But I know of another YouTube channel that's going to do something like that. Question 6. Are the Indian Valley engines going to have faces and emotions like the ones on Sodor? No. Unless I decide to have Thomas and or Lady Brain Magigen Cole to the IVR engines, I'm keeping them as ordinary engines. First question from Narrow Gauge. Who's my favorite narrow gauge engine? Favorite narrow gauge engine? I have 5. Peter Sam, Rusty, Duncan, Duke, and Luke. Peter Sam and Rusty I like because of their cheerful and friendly personalities. Duke I like because of his nickname and the fact that he's owned by a Duke. Duncan I like because of his catchy tune. And Luke I like because he's based on a locomotive in which my granddad drove. So, yeah, you get the gist. Question 2. Do I think Hit should do a movie about the origins of the Skolori Railway, or even better, the Mid-Sorter Railway? That would be a very interesting concept. I think it's definitely worth experimenting with. I don't have any suggestions for it yet, so I can't really share much. Question 3. What railway stories would I like to see in the TV series? Okay, I'm just going to skip this question since it's already been asked before. I don't care if it was asked in a different variant of words, it's still the same question. First question from Thomas and Lionel Fan-Making Productions. Hello again. Since I have positive thoughts on the S160, what name would I give it if it had an original 4-part Railway series story? Okay. A name. Jeffrey? Nah, I'm just kidding. A name. I don't know. I never thought I would get that far. I was kind of thinking that the Thomas team could come up with a name. I just want to shout out to them that they should introduce an S160 into their stories because... dare I explain the situation again? Question 2. Which is better? TV series version of Lady or SIF member Laurie Machen's real life version? Preferably I like the TV series version better. No offense to Loey, but I'm not really fond of his designs for Lady. He makes her saddle tank engine and puts the coal into her side tanks. If that's the case, then what's the bunker in the back any good for? So yeah, I prefer the TV series version better. Can you even call it a TV version? Lady only appeared in the specials. Question 3. Have I ever been to a Day Out with Thomas event long ago, and was it on the GSMR? Yes and no.
What do you mean, yes and no?
Yes, I have been on the Day Out with Thomas events, and no, it wasn't on the GSMR. Unfortunately. But then again, if GSMR had run the Thomas events earlier in their career, I would have preferred to have seen Thomas pull the rainbow coaches rather than those autumn-colored coaches. So, anyways, the Day Out with Thomas events I have been to were at Bressingham in England, and a railway somewhere in Connecticut. I forget the name of it. Bressingham was a lot more fun since they were real steam engines. In Connecticut, they had one of those mock-up engines made by Strasbourg. But a good note of that trip was that I saw Tom Callanan performing there. I never thought I would live to see the day that I'd run into a guest star of Shining Time Station. And at least he keeps the spirit of the show alive, as well as some reminders of the show on his postcards. Question 4. What's my favorite tea beverage? Favorite tea beverage? Does that count as a personal question? Well, it's not vital information, so what the heck. Favorite tea beverage? I like Prince of Wales, Earl Grey, and black tea. Occasionally I'll have herb or jasmine tea if I'm feeling ill, or Nell tea if I have pollen allergies. Question 5. What's my favorite place to visit in the UK? Regrettably, I'm hardly in the UK much. It's now a 1 every 2 years event, it seems. Even when I do go, I rarely go outside of Suffolk and Essex. So, it's very limiting for me to say what my favorite place to visit is. I can tell you all the places that I've been to that I enjoyed. I like Baker Street and, oh, I've been to the Bluebell Railway. That was fun. Yeah, so there's not a lot I can go by. I have been to Scotland once. Saw Donald and Douglas's bases there. That was incredible. Now, one part of Scotland that I went to was the island of Mull. I'd wanted to go there to ride on the Mull and West Highland Railway, but by that time they had closed, so it was a great disappointment. All I have now to go by are the Lottie books made by Christopher Audrey. It's a shame because the purpose of the railway was to take tourists to Torosay Castle. It could have been used simply as a railway entertainment source, but the new owners of the castle decided to put the railway and its employees out of business. Ungrateful b****. Question 6. What's my opinion on Lionel trains involving their Thomas brand? Lionel's great for a no-gauge manufacturer. I'm more into the HO00 trains myself, but Lionel has good qualities. They are the only company that I know who makes model trains based on the Polar Express. In fact, I have a Lionel Polar Express train in my room. I don't run it anymore, though. It's now nothing more than a display trinket. For their Thomas brand, it could have been better. Now, I don't mean any offense. I know how much you like Lionel, as it's in your name and videos, but James could have been a bit more properly molded, and they reused American freight cars instead of creating new molds for the British rolling stock. It's probably just to save money, but still, it's not entirely accurate. Also, their character range is very limited. They've got Thomas, Percy, James, Diesel, Ari, Bird, Annie, Clarabelle, 2 troublesome trucks, Harold, Sir Topham Hatt, 2 drivers, and that's pretty much it. You can see how limited stories can be if you want to feature characters that Lionel doesn't make. No offense. 7. Which movie, that is non-Thomas, would I say reminds me of Thomas and the Magic Railroad and would seem like it's identical to it? For example, by you, Coraline. A very good question. Who Framed Roger Rabbit comes to mind. Long story short, a Toon killed my brother, Ron laid in for him to destroy him. Toontown will be erased! You'll be nothing but useless scrap! I bought the red car so I could dismantle it. I'll just have to level down this mountain. There's no justice for Toons anymore. Diesel's gonna destroy us! Did you get all that? No? Okay, here's the long story. The first noticeable aspect is the 2 different worlds existing element. I mean, it's not every day that you are able to walk into a hand-drawn town inhabited by cartoon characters. It's no different than traveling to a world where talking trains exist. Another major similarity are the subtle hints towards segregation. The book that Who Framed Roger Rabbit is based on, Who Censored Roger Rabbit, was originally written as an allegory towards racism. It's also in the film, but toned down quite a bit. Such examples are the Ink and Paint Club based on the Cotton Club where non-white people could perform and serve but are not allowed to watch, Doom wanting to destroy the red car, and Toontown based on that notorious scheme to replace the red car with automobiles and tearing up poor neighborhoods to build freeways, and a prejudice towards Toons based on issues against African Americans. Now, where's all this in Thomas and the Magic Railroad? Well, in order to find out, you'd have to dig a bit into the lore of Thomas and the Magic Railroad, as well as the railway series itself. The steam engines and diesels could be a metaphorical representation of black and white people, the steam engines being the blacks and the diesels being the whites. Yep, you heard that correct. Truth be told, it does make sense. Steam engines are pretty much the machines that slaved away building the railway tracks, much like black people and other non-white ethnics did most of the work that helped develop the population in the United States. Diesels show up and treat steam engines cruelly, much like white people did to any other race in their home country. This allegory was also represented in Andrew Lloyd Webber's Starlight Express in the early London runs. Also, like the Toons in Who Framed Roger Rabbit, injustice towards steam engines is shown throughout the later books of Reverend Audrey's series. They even show steam engines being cut up, which is very much like the shoe that Doom dipped. This whole theme does not seem so evident in the final cut of Thomas and the Magic Railroad, but it is evident in the original scripts of the film, and as I am someone who believes that the story meant to be told as the writer envisioned it counts and not the final product, I'll look at the original script only. Plans to replace an already convenient mode of transportation with a more revolutionary mode is represented well with Diesel 10's original motives to scrap steam engines and replace them with diesels. In all due respects, Britt Allcroft, while fascinated with venturing out into creating new storylines that deviate somewhat from Reverend Audrey's original envisionment, does retain her knowledge of the characters and situations from the Railway series and keeps them in her own storylines, Thomas and the Magic Railroad included. For example, in Series 5, there's the old mine that was abandoned that Bertram was found in by Toby. It could be said that that was originally worked by the little narrow gauge railways of the Mid-Sodor Railway. And the horrid lorries coming to Sodor? That could very well represent the issue that people have against roadways replacing the railways as an important means of transportation. Now, you may be asking how these storylines differ from the new series and the Miller-era CGI series. Well, in the new series and Miller-era CGI series, the roles of the stereotypes are reversed. Steam engines represent white people, while diesels represent black, and when you have that, boy does it ruin everything. I mean, there was never a time in history that steam engines became superiors to diesels on a functioning railway system. Not even during the preservation era, because nowadays the earlier diesel models are becoming scarce and have to find a place on the heritage lines along steam engines in order to survive. And yet, in the aforementioned series, the steam engines appear to have all the glory on the railway, and the diesels are shunned into the dirty back end of the woods. Now, this may attribute to the fact that so many humans like steam engines more than diesels, but in terms of context, it falls apart. It just doesn't generate the same chemistry that many people would feel when steam engines were being cast out and the diesels had the high power, which is historically what happened. In the New and Miller series, they try to glorify steam engines because they are more popular with rail fans, but it falls apart because the steam engines are shown to have all the glory, which goes against histories and makes them less sympathetic to them and makes us viewers more so towards diesel engines, which contradicts what rail fans and historians know to be true. With the Railway series and the Classic series and the Brenner series, we see prime examples that the steam engines are being shunned because they're less efficient than diesels, but they have so much life in them which makes us more sympathetic towards them. The same could be said for black people. In history, they've been abused by white people by being forced to move out of whatever homes they've had and live a poorer life in order to glorify the needs of white people. But despite this, there are so many black people who have so much life given to them. Many of them are creative, full of wisdom, and know the right thing to do. In fact, I had a classmate once who I hold in high respects. Well, that's off subject now. Remember Doom wanting to dismantle the red car in order to build the freeway? Well, in some versions of the original script of Thomas and the Magic Railroad, P.T. Boomer actually wanted to blow up Muffle Mountain in order to make way for skyscrapers and parking lots. Geez, with those motives, you would have thought that the theory about him wanting to tear up the Indian Valley line and replace it with a freeway was true. You know, now that I'm thinking about it, Thomas and the Magic Railroad sounds more brilliantly conceived than before. Certainly makes Escape sound more epic than when I first read it, and how the TV series portrayed it. Maybe Andrew Brenner can come up with a special depicting Oliver's quest for Sodor. Or we can just wait for Rails to Salvation to come. Also, there is an essence of a person who's lost someone close to them and has to spend a lot of the film trying to find peace within them to let go of the past and move on. That being Burnett Stone and Eddie Valiant in their respective films. Speaking of Eddie, oddly enough, it was revealed that some time ago that Bob Hoskins, who played as Eddie Valiant in Who Framed Roger Rabbit, had auditioned for the role of Thomas in Thomas and the Magic Railroad, along with Ewan McGregor. Seriously? Bob Hoskins as Thomas? I can imagine Ewan McGregor as a possible choice, but Bob Hoskins? No offense to him, but who'd want to hear Thomas speak like a gravelly-voiced private cop?
Will you please take Millie? Forget it. That work comes out. I have a big blue engine. Who knows? Everything. You think that's funny? You won't think it's funny when I stick that pen up your nose. Each. That's it. That's it. You've been hanging around rabbits too long. Holy smoke, he's a dude! Why do you keep hitting him like that? That's it. You call the cops.
No! Uh-oh, went out of pities.
Next question. What are my thoughts and opinions on Japan's first Day Out with Thomas event since last year, and what suggestions would I give to make their event better than how it is today? I don't really hear much about the Day Out with Thomas events in Japan. I'm sure Japan is enjoying them very much, especially since they have so many characters recreated. Thomas, Percy, James, Rusty, Hero even. Yeah, I don't really know how it could be improved. I think it's fine the way it is. Next question. If I still had the chance to collect wooden railway engines again, would I use their faces for my HO00 scale models for customs in future videos? Didn't I answer this already? I feel like I did. Oh well, back to the question. No. I do have the chance to collect wooden railway engines. Actually, it's more of a certainty, considering how many stores I've been to carry them. I just don't want to anymore. I've collected the special Thomas gift pack, and I'm ending there. Besides, they're all getting the CGI-style faces, and I don't want those deviations from the original Thomas image. So, before you ask, I am making faces of my own, and for what they're worth, they're great HO scale replicas of classic Thomas faces. I can't show any of them now, unfortunately, because they all got frozen into the molding base. Question 10. Since I don't like Rosie to be painted pink, what do I think of Z. Mark Anthony's custom HO00 scale model of Rosie left in wartime black? Let's not remind ourselves that I don't like pink engines. Lady herself is plum, and that's technically in the range of pink. Or is it in the range of purple? Actually, now that you mention it, I think Lady's color is actually carmine, and that's more in the range of red. Either way, Lady's colors are more appealing to look at than Rosie's colors. Speaking of which, why is Rosie painted pink when she's described as a tomboy? Pink's not a tomboy color. On Rosie, it's being used as a stereotypical color. What? No, wait, not again! I still have birds from complaining that Rosie was too basic! Don't throw the bomb! Don't throw the bomb!
How do you do? I am a vegetarian. My name is Mud. Is there a doctor in the house?
Okay. Back to the question. Rosie in wartime black. I don't know. It doesn't seem to match. Rosie has this bubbly, chirpy, innocent face, and it doesn't work well with the black paintwork. I would prefer blue or green or red, but who am I to argue about Rosie's color? Anything would be better than pink. Actually, it's lavender to be specific, but... Oh, come on! Look, I have the right to say what I want to say, as long as it's civilized. I'm not abusing Rosie for her colors and design. I'm just stating what's factual about what's customary for locomotives. That doesn't mean I deserve to be punished for it, right? I guess I'll have to take that as a no.
Can we take a recess?
3 hours later.
Can you move it along? I'm all out of time cards.
Right. Next question. Do I think Nick Parks should have made a sequel to Wallace and Gromit's 2005 movie for this year instead of making a Shaun the Sheep movie? Okay, so I haven't seen Shaun the Sheep yet, so I can't really compare it much. But yeah, I would have liked to have seen a second Wallace and Gromit film, just with no metamorphosis. Seriously, why did they make Wallace a giant rabbit? That still upsets my stomach to this day. First question from Dragonzilla. Do I remember an engine called City of Truro appearing in both the Railway series and TV series, and do I think the engine should have a face? I knew long before that City of Truro appeared in the Railway series, but it wasn't until the Best of Gordon's release, however, that I learned that he also made an appearance in the TV series. And as for the face, he already has one. Well, 2 to be specific. One in the 1980 annual of Thomas the Tank Engine, illustrated by David Palmer, and another in the magazine story Surprise Visitor. The faces are different in both images, and if you had to ask, I prefer the annual version. He looks like a true Western engine with that face. Someone who looks like he is respectful and deserving of respect. The magazine version is... well, look at it. The nose is very off. It looks cartoony than an actual nose. Plus, the face is oversized, and the rail notch is stuck in his forehead. Jeez. Come on, you guys. If you had to illustrate City of Truro like that, couldn't you have at least put the railing on top of the smoke box like they did with Oliver, rather than leave it in a place where he could puncture an engine's cranium? I don't know why TV tropes fuss about Gordon's pilot chassis being dislodged. They're not. They're attached to his main chassis. Besides, the pilot chassis technically isn't really a part of his main structure. It's more fixed onto it. It's more like a shoe or something rather than a limb if you want to relate it to human terms. But that's beside the point. I think that a railing notch in the forehead is much more painful to a talking engine than a loose pilot chassis. If anything, all the nerves of a steam engine would be in the face. The rest of it would just be add-ons. And I don't care if Hornby did the same thing to Oliver. They shouldn't have done it in the first place. Question 2. Do I think that the Flying Scotsman and Mallard would make great characters if they had the opportunity to appear in the TV series? Technically, Flying Scotsman did appear in the series, but wasn't made of much use because only his tenders appeared. He doesn't even get a line to say. In fact, he has less screen time and mentions than Lady has. I don't understand why some certain stuck-ups are so agitated at Lady for being overrated. I mean, sure, she only has a small speaking role in Thomas and the Magic Railroad and an even smaller role in Calling All Engines, but let's face it, without Lady in the Magic Railroad film, there's not much point for Bernard to get over his past and move on to the future, or for Lily to find a way to connect with her grandpa. So what if Lady's only a plot device? At least she's not a MacGuffin. So what if she doesn't have much character development? At least we get a glimpse of her personality. She's kind, wise, and forgiving. For years, Burnett blamed himself for letting Lady get wrecked, and when she finally comes back to life, does she scold him? No, because she's understanding. She knows that the accident she got into wasn't entirely his fault, and she knows that all toil and stress he went through just to bring her back to life. And should we really blame Lady for not being made into a large role? No, it's the writer's fault because they didn't know what to do with her. And I don't mean Britt Allcroft, she does a fine job of making use of Lady. I mean those pencil-pushing umpires at the Hit Entertainment. Their lack of knowledge proves that they know nothing right to do with Lady. They just stick her in for a dream sequence. If you ask me, that's more of a waste of character development for Lady than Thomas and the Magic Railroad is. But hey, that was only 2 rounds, and you know what they say, 3rd time's the charm, and I've got some advice that could have Lady utilized in a good way. 1. Try to bring more character to her. You can work off the Magic Railroad film, but not calling all engines. The latter is the film that misled people into thinking that Lady's overrated. 2. Lady's possibly not based on a real engine. Did anyone actually ask anybody else that? Did someone ask Britt Allcroft about Lady, or Lady's designer Oleg Stavitsky, if they based Lady on a real locomotive? And if not, so what? You can jolly well say that she was a prototype engine within universe. No one said you couldn't do that. And if you prefer not to do that, then give her an actual design to model her off of. Relatively speaking, she's close enough to the Great Western 101 class engine in terms of shape. 3. If you don't like the magic thing, you don't have to incorporate it into the story. No one said you had to. Though, truthfully, it would be cool if magic was viewed upon as an energy field. It would give some reason as to why trains talk in the first place. I know, I'm deviating from my MRA logic, but I'm only throwing out suggestions. I can accept the MRA as its own canon, and I welcome anyone to try and explain how trains talk. Except for Shed 17! But back to the question in hand, Flying Scotsman could have been used much better in the TV series, given his role in the Railway series. And as for Mallard, I kind of get the feeling that if he appeared, we're gonna get another Spencer. But I think both have a good chance of appearing in the TV series, if Brenner decides to adapt Thomas and the Great Railway Show as a story. I've still got those story suggestions if anyone's willing to listen.